Time for world politics, and a lot's going on in the political landscape, including some things that are actually kind of scary and all along those lines. But we'll be talking about that, me and Sasha. We'll see if anybody else joins us as well to hear about a lot of these conversations and what's going on. I know that the president is meeting with the folks from London and the whole royal community and all along those lines. And then the thing that I saw that Sasha will find interesting, as we know that there's a lot of people that are not that big of a fan of President Trump from around the world and everything like that. But I was just reading earlier today that President Trump will have his face on passports. So that's right. If you get a passport to go to another country, you'll be having his face on the passport. I'm not sure whether you have to request that or whether that will be issued among the passports that are coming out. But I just saw that story and everything along those lines. So things like it's just getting crazier and crazier and all along those lines, because I just read that story, Sasha, where they were saying that there's going to be a new passport that will be released, and in that passport, you will have the face of Donald Trump if you decide to get that passport. Now, what I wasn't clear about in reading the story is whether that is something that you have to request, but it's all part of the celebration of the 250th anniversary of America and all along those lines. So it does look like there will be a passport that will be put out there that you can get that will have his face. And I know that there's a lot of people around the country, including yourself, that are from other parts of the world that aren't the biggest fans of the president and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this is received by the world community, because I know there are a lot of people, whether they're in Europe, whether they're in Africa, whether they're in Asia, that aren't the biggest fans of Trump, and they might not even accept the Americans that are coming over if they've got his face on the passport and everything like that. But I just found that really interesting, and just saw that maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, as I was going through news stories and everything like that. So what do you think about this notion of having the president's face on the passport?
I think something is missing here is very important thing. The passport is very valuable document, and
Hmm.
for Americans, it's a question of pride to have the passport, and for a privilege of having a passport, specifically with Trump's face on it. I think the Americans have to pay at least $1,000 a piece. So if say a family of four would like to have passports all together, so they would have to pay $4,000, and then they will have passport with the image of Donald Trump or so on. Now, other question would be that around the world, a lot of people hate Trump, and
Right.
there's no doubt that a lot of these passports will be stolen. A lot of this passport will be uh, put in garbage cans or and something like that. So then you can sell insurance. Let's see, for another $100, you not only have passport, you also have insurance in case of your passport will be destroyed or stolen. And that will be done anything to it. So you will have insurance and a new passport free of charge. Say maybe a small administrative charge of say $55, and you will get a new passport. So that would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything along those lines. I did have another question for you, and I brought it up earlier when I was doing the news briefs on World Edition. We had our guests, so I didn't get a chance to talk to you or Rick about it and everything like that. But, for many years, there was a coalition of oil producing countries that were very powerful, that being the OPEC nations. I know that throughout my life, and particularly ever since my teenage years and everything like that, you would hear about the OPEC nations and how they were controlling gas and other things along those lines in terms of the prices and who got the oil and who didn't get the oil and all along those lines. But one of those countries, and I know you have mentioned it before, even in your conversations around Israel and the Muslim countries and everything like that, but one of those countries, which is very powerful, has pulled out of OPEC, that being the United Arab Emirates. So I was just wondering your take on this, because that was something that was also reported earlier today. And I just wanted your take on them pulling out. I know Saudi Arabia is not too thrilled about that. Some of the other countries, probably even Egypt and others, aren't too thrilled about it as well. So what is your take on this notion of UAE pulling out of OPEC, as that is mostly Middle Eastern countries and everything like that? But it sounds like that could be a serious blow to the OPEC coalition.
Yeah, that's a quite significant event because OPEC was invented as the means of fighting the United States and European countries on the oil prices. And so there was a coalition of all those Arab countries. And although Soviet Union was not part of OPEC, but it was very sympathetic to Arab states. So it was always treated as an OPEC plus, which means Soviet Union, even not a member in a proper sense, but collaborating on that idea. What's happening today? Today is because of the war with Iran, um, the OPEC is losing its strategic means of affecting the world oil prices or economies or anything simply because Iran can strangulate them and just keep them their oil undelivered. And so therefore US is trying to fill the gap with their production facilities. So now Russia is nowhere. It's either sanctioned or it's not sanctioned. Nobody knows what the true story is. So the OPEC itself, in the previous incarnation, it does not longer make any sense at all.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything like that. I'm gonna go off camera just for a second so I can turn off this TV that's in the background and everything like that. But before I do that, and all along those lines, the other thing that I was curious about, and then I'll come back and we'll continue this conversation, is I saw that Britain on Tuesday, yesterday, saw that they're going to uphold a ban on pro-Palestinian group Palestinian Action, which it is designated a terrorist organization after a court ruling that the move unlawfully interfered with the freedom of expression. So there are some people that are wanting some of these groups to still have freedom of expression and all along those lines. And they're saying that Palestine Action had increasingly targeted Israeli-linked defense companies in Britain with a particular focus on Israel's largest defense firm, Elbit Systems, which was prescribed under terrorism laws last year. So it looks like some of these organizations are being told that they can't do as much protest as they used to do in various countries, whether that's in England or whether that's in Australia or a number of other countries as well. So I just wanted your take on some of these countries that are taking action against organizations that they consider to be terrorists and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on that because apparently the ban placed the group on a par with the Islamic State or Al Qaeda, making membership a criminal offense punishable by up to 14 years in prison. And more than 2,700 people have been arrested for holding signs in support of Palestine Action, though charges could be dropped if the High Court ruling is upheld there in London. So what's your take on different countries designating organizations as terrorist groups? We've even seen that here in the U.S. and then trying to enforce the rules against them. So like I said, I'm going to turn off the TV now and I have a couple other questions for you as well. But what's your take on that and all along those lines?
In my opinion, whole idea of a Palestinian freedom fight is becoming sort of an excuse for all sorts of criminals to do all kind of public protests or anything else just to get themselves busy. Most of them are receiving money from supporting organizations. And this is all what it is because in Israel, Arabs are integral part of a community. They live in harmony with the population of Israel, who are not Arabs but rather Jews or other nationalities, and they have access to work, to studies, to medicine, they're just completely free citizens of the country of Israel. And all this nonsense of Palestinians fighting for their freedom or so on, what freedom? Make a country, head a country with all the institutions and make life happy for your citizens, but they are not making a country. They're not. They're fighting for Israel to be thrown into the sea, from the river to the sea, and all that garbage. That's all really what they are doing. So they are, unfortunately, they're making life miserable for their own people, first of all, but then also for the neighboring country, Israel, of course, being number one of them. And that's all there is to it. And they're trying to make noises in Europe and elsewhere. This is a horrible, horrible idea. And I wish the people who are sponsoring this idea and throwing money for the people who are participating, I think it would be great if they would be severely punished.
Well, I know in the past you've mentioned UAE was a country that was offered or that was given an opportunity to be a Palestinian nation and all along those lines. So maybe that's something they will explore as they become more independent of OPEC and some of the other Arab countries. Because I do remember in past episodes you have mentioned UAE as well as Kuwait and some of the other countries as being countries that I guess were originally given the opportunity to be the Palestinian nation and everything like that. So as they become more independent from each other, maybe that'll become part of the conversation in the future. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and who decides to join in these conversations and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and we'll just be continuing to watch here on Pod TV and other places as well. Another story, and I'll come back to Trump and everything that I saw earlier yesterday. We didn't have him today, and I think he's been busy with some of his projects that he's involved with. But Jacoby was bringing up this idea of it being staged, meaning the shooting and everything like that. And I did see that the president actually made a statement. Who knows? Maybe he's watching Pod TV, but he was making a statement that this idea of it being staged was a absurd idea and all along those lines. So he's basically saying that there was no way that it was staged and that it would be impossible to stage it and everything like that. So I know Jacoby was of the opinion, and I've read other people, including various conspiracy theorists, that have talked about both the Pennsylvania incident and this one as being a staged incident. But I did see where President Trump had tried to downplay that idea and tried to make it seem as if that was an absurd idea and everything like that. So what is your take on this notion of it being a staged shooting and maybe the guy having been paid off some money or paid off in some kind of way, even though jail time is a real significant payment if you actually wind up serving all that time and everything. And the young man apparently was involved in everything from video games to being a teacher of the year and a number of other things, and was fairly young. I think he's only 31 and everything like that. But what is your notion of this being a staged shooting, whether it's this one or the one in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I've heard this rumors about fake shooting, and it's very difficult to believe that that's what taking place. On the other hand, then you have to believe that this person was a complete sick person, and just the way he behaved and that run. Um, and that it's not credible at all. So maybe he was hired by somebody. Okay, you just run, you will get 20 years in jail, and you'll be a very rich person as a result of it. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll take money, I'll go to jail for 20 years. It's just so obscure situation to believe in that scenario. I don't.
Yeah, and it would be difficult to prove and everything like that because, like I said, I mean, there was even those kind of accusations way back when with Oswald and a number of other folks that actually carried out their assassinations, that there were multiple shooters or that there were other people involved. I think there was even rumors at one time with Oswald of the Russians being involved and everything like that. So a lot of times these rumors do take a life of their own, and sometimes they are investigated or continue to be investigated. I think there's still people that are still having theories about the Kennedy assassination, the assassination of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and a number of other political leaders as well. So there are probably even some people that have theories about Ronald Reagan's assassination attempts, as well as the assassination attempts of some of the other presidents as well. I did see that James Comey was back in the news, and apparently he's been indicted over 2025 social media posts that he put out there and everything like that. And we do know that Comey has definitely been involved in the news in the past and everything like that. But it looks like he's back in the news. So the former FBI director has been indicted on allegations that a photo he posted on social media in 2025 constituted a dangerous threat to the president. So the indictment by a federal grand jury, ironically in my state, in North Carolina, marks the second time the Justice Department has pursued a criminal prosecution against Comey as the law enforcement agency's latest attempt to criminally charge one of President Donald Trump's longtime political foes. So there was this notion that Trump was going to go after his enemies and go after them in any way that he could and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on this and if you've been hearing about this, because the two charges stem from a photo that Comey posted online last year showing seashells on a beach that were arranged to write out 8647. Trump's is the 47th president, and 86 can be banning or removing someone, but it can also be slang for killing a person. So the 3-page indictment states that the seashells were arranged in a pattern marking out 8647, which a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm to the president of the United States. So apparently this is all because of a photo that he put out there with different imagery and everything like that. So what's your take on this notion of these attempts on him and also maybe him going after his enemies?
Yes, Trump is going after all his enemies, and that's exactly what he said in his election campaign. So it's not a surprise to anybody. Particularly for Kama, I don't feel sorry about him simply because he was very instrumental person to bring Trump to power in 2016 when he said just a few days before the election, he said that they have to further investigate Hillary Clinton and so on. And that's probably caused Clinton to lose the election. She was leading prior to that, and yet she lost election. So if Comey sooner or later will have to be responsible for that. So maybe time is now.
It might be time now. He might have, the piper might have come calling, as they say, and everything like that. So he might be having to face these consequences because there are a number of people that are facing consequences. There was also an article in the Washington Post about David M. Morans, who used to be a former Fauci aide and everything. So apparently there are some charges about what he did in the response to the pandemic. So he's been charged in an indictment that was unsealed this week and everything like that. So there are some people that are still concerned that not enough was done in the sense of the way that we handled the pandemic. So he has apparently been charged in an alleged effort to thwart some of the things that were done in the pandemic inquiries and everything like that. So any thoughts around that as to how we're doing? Because, I mean, it seems like we're out of the pandemic, but then again, there are new viruses that pop up. I think there was a measles crisis recently and other health concerns, and we do still have RFK in office. And I think that our medical show will be on tomorrow, if I remember correctly, and everything like that. So how do you think we're doing in terms of health coverage and all in that lines? And are you there in Canada concerned about the notion of a further pandemic or the pandemic resurgence?
In Canada, we are not concerned about that much because sometimes that happens once in a while, and when it's happened, it's time to worry about it. If it's not happening, then there is very little to worry about it. People normally take their vaccinations as suggested by their doctors, and there is very little information about resentment of this certain vaccinations as they happened, and there is very little public discussion, if any, because people believe it's up to their family doctor's decision, and they want to follow it, fine. They don't want to follow it, they're just fine. They can change the doctor, or they can stop going to see the doctor and just be on their own, be their own doctors, and whatever they want to do. That's not a big concern, really.
That makes sense and everything like that. Like I said, I know the king is here visiting the president and all along those lines. What do you expect? Because I know that even Zelensky sometimes back came and visited the president. But what do you expect to happen? I do understand that there was tightened security because of the things that were going on and all along those lines. But what did you expect to happen because of this visit and everything like that?
You're talking about King's visit?
Yeah, the king's visit in the United States.
Well, hopefully it will be over soon and nothing will happen during that time. And I don't understand the purpose of that visit, just sort of amusement for King and Donald Trump himself. And I would dismiss it as a non-event
A
completely.
non-event. That makes sense. I know that tomorrow, and I'll send you the link and everything like that, you're going to have modern investment. But I just saw that Kevin O'Leary, who a lot of people know because of Shark Tank and things along those lines, he had an interesting quote, and you might find it interesting. He says, capitalism works because, and I've heard you say something similar, the losers die. So he's making this argument that it's a really bad idea for the federal government to bail out Spirit Airlines and all along those lines. So he says that Spirit Airlines may only have days to secure a lifeline, but the multimillionaire investor and Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary is thinking that Washington should let the budget carrier crash and burn. So in an interview on Thursday on News Nation, he called the Trump administration's reported $500 million plan to rescue Spirit Airlines a really bad idea, arguing that propping up failing companies undermines the logic of American capitalism. All of these rescue bailout programs for failing companies, capitalism works because the losers die. The protein goes to the bottom of the ocean. It's acquired by private equity firm, lenders, or other strategic buyers, but it's bad management. So basically, he's got that same idea that I think you said about war, which is that to the victors go the spoils and everything like that. So what is your idea around what he's saying? Because he's basically saying that if they're doing bad management, it's bad management, and we don't really need to be trying to prop them up. And I know there have been efforts with the automobile industry, with various other industries that have failed, and a lot of money has been piped into them. I mean, some of people would even say that some of the pandemic aid was an attempt to keep people afloat that might not have been needed to be afloat and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on what Kevin O'Leary is saying.
I saw a brilliant play with the name The Lehman Brothers. I saw it first, it was a London stage show, and I saw it in the transmission from London Theatre. And then the show was in Toronto, and I saw it live. So that's a very interesting episode when Lehman Brothers, they were already established and doing quite well. And I think it was at the beginning of the 20th century. So there was one bank as it was going under, and there was a decision to be made whether to save this bank by offering them some loans and so on, just keep it afloat, or just let it go. So there were about half and half other banks. Some decided to help, some decided to let it go under, and final word was with the Lehman Brothers. And Lehman Brothers said, well, we analyzed everything and so on, just let it die. And the bank was not rescued, they had to go under and so on. And then the same situation happening in 2008, when Lehman Brothers itself was subject whether to let it go or rescue and to make it alive. And the decision was made to let it go. So whatever they did 100 years ago came back to them right in. Situation is now, what's the situation? Okay, there were many other investment companies that were rescued in 2008, and not only in US, but also all over the world.
Right.
So don't forget that each bank, its shareholders, employees, the holders of bank papers and all that stuff, lenders and so on. So it's a very difficult question in which case the way you act. Now with the Spirit Airlines, Airlines is not that glamorous business. It's very risky business. Most airlines sooner or later would go under. So what you make decision, okay, each airline has some assets, planes, the people who work for that, so on. So maybe it's a good idea for some to let's for example the shareholders of that airline, in case of it will go under, they will lose all their capital, but it's capital, it's risky to begin with, so they will lose their risky capital. What's so extraordinary about that? To me, absolutely nothing. People took a risk, they thought they would make some money, or they were mistaken. Now they are losing money. What's important is to make sure that somebody will acquire the assets, including employees and management and so on, and by infusion of more money, maybe to restructuring or maybe merging it with another airline or so on, they will save all that goodwill. In that perspective, I think that would be the right way to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense, by the way. And I know that Rick has talked about it when he's been on the show and everything like that. Surprisingly, and I think he was expecting a bump, and maybe there'll be a bump later, but apparently, and this was reported earlier today, like about an hour ago, Trump's approval rating has fallen to the lowest of his current term in a new poll. So I think his poll was taken maybe even after the shooting on Saturday, but apparently his ratings have fallen to their lowest, and they were already low as they were and everything like that. So maybe he did not get the bump that was expected from this whole horrible shooting that took place at the Correspondence Dinner, and all along those lines. I've got to figure out when they actually asked the people, and maybe it took place before the actual event. But the latest ratings are saying that he is not doing good. I know that he's going after Kimmel, and currently Kimmel told a bad joke about widows and everything like that that had to do with the president's wife, and all along those lines. And there had been a effort to try to get Kimmel off the office, like they've gotten some other people off of out of their TV coverage and everything like that. But I knew there are some people even on Twitter and stuff that are saying that this was a bad joke. And this was before the shooting, that he made a joke about how she looked like I think an expected widow or something like that. But it was definitely a reference to the state of health of the president, and this was before the shooting attempt and all along those lines. But there had been a lot of pushback against Kimmel because of the nature of the joke and everything like that. So I was wondering what you've been hearing about that particular joke and the fallout, and also, are you surprised that his approval ratings are still so low?
I'm surprised that this statement about her being a widow or prospective widow, how, that it's taking so much out of context. First of all, she's going to be a widow, whether she wanted or not, because she is 24 years younger than
Right.
Trump. So there will be a time when he'll die. You know, he's not a saint. He is going to die, and he will be put in casket and be put into the ground. So she will be a widow sooner or later. So what's a big deal about it? It doesn't matter. Somebody will shoot him, or he'll just die from natural causes, or he'll get sick by I don't know, whatever is some of this. Maybe speed, maybe uh, some other.
Could be, yeah, it could be cancer. It could be just old age. I mean, there's a number of reasons that can take
Let's
you out.
face it. Let's face it. She's going to be a widow. He will die, and there's nothing to do about it. It's a part of biological way of life.
Yeah, it's part of our life and everything like that. There's no doubt about that and everything like that. We'll get ready to wrap up, but I did see two other quick, interesting stories. Apparently, AI worries, and I know we talk about that here on the network as well, have returned to Wall Street. So I guess people are worried about OpenAI and ChatGPT. Now, maybe not so much NVIDIA, but they are saying that earnings are coming pretty well as well, because the article in the Wall Street Journal says AI worries have returned to Wall Street. Now comes earnings. So I think they're looking at both the earnings, but also come concerned that the kind of like the tech bubble, that there may be a collapse of the AI, even though a lot of people are still concerned about AI and are wondering how AI is going to impact our jobs and our life and everything like that. But I know that you still are heavily invested in NVIDIA. I think you're invested in some other AI projects as well, whether that's ChatGPT or OpenAI and stuff like that, and even Claude. But I was wondering your take on this whole AI revolution, and has the AI revolution run its course?
Um, well, it could be that there will be a slowdown of AI, primarily because it's been largely financed by Arabs, sheikhs, money. They moved hundreds of millions, if not, sorry, billions rather, or maybe even trillions of dollars into AI, all kinds of projects. And I think it will be drying up quite considerably simply because of the situation in the Middle East and the fact that United States failed to defend these countries. So they're furious that after investing hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars in US projects, in US economy, in AI, and just name it, uh, there's no defense. So, what kind of arrangement is that? So, obviously, their all revenue may not be the same, and they will have to definitely they will scale down on their investment, and that could lead to slowdown in AI trade.
No doubt about that. One last story, because I know Ken would love me to bring this up, and then this will be the last one that I'll mention, and we'll close it after this. But it has to do with a issue that she's passionate about. But apparently, there was an article that was out there in the media about the Reverend James Green was in the middle of delivering a sermon at the Union Mission Baptist Church, #1 in Shreveport, when he learned the unthinkable had happened. In the morning, a National Guard veteran shot 2 women and killed 7 of his kids and one of their cousins. The gunman died after a police chase, and this took place on April 19th, not far from Green's Church in Shreveport, a city of nearly 180,000 people near the Texas border in northwest Louisiana. And he said it was worse than getting a kick in the gut. Recalled Green, who is also a Shreveport city councilman. It was like the wind being snatched out of me. And as a community grappled with the aftermath of the shooting, Green spearheaded a domestic violence summit and hosted community vigils. The nation, and he insisted, needs to zoom in on domestic violence because it happens every minute, every hour of our lives. But like some Americans already beset with traumatic news and deep political divisions at home, and the wars in Iran and Ukraine may choose to look away, partly to protect their own mental health. So he said, we've been talking about this in psychology for years, not just with mass shootings, but other incidents of trauma that have replayed over and over again, that we do not have to take a healthy level of self-care. It's what April Alexander, a director of the University of North Carolina Charlotte Violence Prevention Center, said. And I know that Kim is very much big into this notion of there's a lot of domestic violence that is taking place. And that's one of the things that both of these individuals are saying, is that domestic violence should not be something that we ignore and everything like that, because apparently it is a major problem in the United States, and I think in other parts of the country as well. Even though there's some countries that might be doing better with the way that they handle it, and also the ways that having lower amounts of it and everything like that. But there are definitely a growing number of people worldwide that are turning away from the news, partly because they find the news depressing, but also they're not dealing with some of these issues and everything like that, and all along those lines. So I was just wondering your take, because a lot of people have become numb to violence, whether it's the violence of mass violence, like what we're seeing in the wars, or the violence that is more directly involved with communities, which is domestic violence. So a lot of people have become numb to the notion of violence and mass tragedy just because they hear so much about it, not just on our network, but just in general and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on that idea, because some people are becoming numb. And I think that's one of the things that this minister was saying, is that we don't need to be numb to domestic violence, and we don't need to be numb to violence in general. So I just wanted your take on this idea that we see so much of it. And of course, we also see it on TV shows. I mean, I've been watching this Cop show for the last couple of hours, and I can't tell you how many people have been shot and killed and everything, but it's been a whole heap of them and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on this notion of us being numb to domestic violence and violence in general. And then after you answer that, I'll probably do the 30-second one versus the other one and get us on out of here.
Mark, this is all starts with the society and its foundation, and the violence is ugly part of it, but it's much more a problem in the United States than in many other countries. For example, in Europe, where people live in a tight communities, they don't move for a century anywhere. Sometimes 3 generations of people live in the same house or apartment or whatever. So they know each other. They're going together to schools or some other events and so on. So therefore, the violence there is much less expected and happening much less often than in US, where it's very fluid situation. People move here and there, and they're watching different television programs and reading all kind of garbage on internet and so on. And it's very difficult to investigate what's in their brains, so to speak. So that's where the violence starts. And as much as you can be sympathetic to victims of the violence, there is very little you can do to prevent further violence to be done. What you mean to have death sentences, but even people who are victims of the violence, they are against capital punishment. Okay, so they cannot even defend themselves against future problems. So this is very difficult questions, and all I can say is I'm very sympathetic to victims of violence. I am not prepared to suggest anything what can seriously prevent it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, we'll wrap up and everything like that. I'll see you tomorrow on World Edition. It may be an abbreviated edition unless Kim or Nick can help me out, because I've got an event that I've got to deal with where I've got a potential job candidate coming to one of my jobs and everything like that. It won't impact our show because I'll be done with that by 1 o'clock and everything like that. But we'll play it by ear. But I'll definitely set up the link and send it out. But it may be a 30-minute show depending on what goes on with that or who is able to relieve me and all along those lines. But the 1 o'clock show, it won't impact it at all because I'm done by 12:30 and everything like that.
And please send me a link to this show as well. Okay.
I would definitely do that. And so I said we'll close out with the 30-second one, but it's been a good conversation as always with you, Sasha. I always enjoy hearing your thoughts and what you've got on your mind, just like I enjoy hearing the other folks as well. So I look forward to catching you on tomorrow.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.